What if the very foods you've spent years avoiding are actually some of the most helpful foods for supporting fat loss after age 60? Sounds hard to believe, right? For decades, many people have been told to stay away from certain foods, often feeling guilty whenever they enjoyed them. But what if those foods aren't the problem at all? What if some of them are exactly what your body needs at this stage of life? I know that may sound surprising, especially coming from a physician. But stay with me because everything I'm about to share is based on scientific research. Not opinions, not social media trends, and not marketing hype. We're talking about findings from clinical studies, peer-reviewed research, and data collected from real adults over the age of 60. I'm Dr. William Lee, and I've spent more than 20 years researching how food influences the body's natural healing and metabolic processes. During that time, I've uncovered discoveries that challenged many assumptions I once accepted as fact, especially when it comes to how the body burns fat later in life. Today, we're going to explore 4 foods that have been unfairly labeled as bad by diet culture, outdated nutrition advice, and even some well-intentioned healthcare professionals. More importantly, we'll look at what modern science actually reveals about how these foods affect your metabolism. By the end of this video, you'll understand which 4 foods deserve a place back on your plate, and why your body responds to them very differently at 60 than it did at 35. Let's begin. Before we talk about those foods, there's something important you need to understand. Losing fat after 60 is not the same as losing fat when you're younger. If you've been eating less, exercising more, following every recommendation you've heard, and still struggling to lose weight, there's a reason for that. The issue isn't a lack of discipline, it's biology. As we age, our metabolism naturally changes. One major shift is the decline in resting metabolic rate, the amount of energy your body burns simply to keep you alive. After 60, this rate typically decreases by around 10 to 15% every decade. In simple terms, your body is burning fewer calories than it used to, even if your daily habits haven't changed. That means the eating pattern that worked perfectly in your 40s may now lead to gradual weight gain in your 60s. Hormonal changes create another challenge. For women, estrogen levels decline. For men, testosterone gradually drops. These changes influence where fat is stored. Instead of being distributed more evenly throughout the body, fat increasingly accumulates around the midsection. This deep abdominal fat, known as visceral fat, surrounds important organs and is associated with higher health risks. It's also much harder to lose than the fat many people carried when they were younger. Then there's muscle loss. Beginning around age 60, adults typically lose between 3 and 5% of their muscle mass every decade. This age-related decline, called sarcopenia, has a significant impact on metabolism because muscle tissue burns calories even while you're resting. Less muscle means fewer calories burned throughout the day. Unfortunately, many traditional diet plans fail to account for these changes. Most popular weight loss advice was originally developed with younger adults in mind. Strict calorie restriction and low-fat approaches often backfire in older adults because they can contribute to additional muscle loss, slowing metabolism even further. Your body after 60 requires a different strategy. It needs foods that help support muscle preservation, encourage healthy fat metabolism, and work alongside your changing hormones rather than fighting against them. That's exactly why the next 4 foods are so important. Let's start with the first one. Whole eggs, including the yolk. For decades, the egg yolk had a terrible reputation. Many people were taught that it was packed with cholesterol, harmful for the heart, and something that should be avoided whenever possible. Egg white omelets became the symbol of healthy eating, while yolks were routinely thrown away. Today we know that much of that advice was based on an incomplete understanding of nutrition. And for adults over 60, avoiding the yolk may have meant missing out on some valuable health benefits. Here's why. Years ago, researchers believed that eating cholesterol automatically raised blood cholesterol levels. However, newer research has shown that for most healthy individuals, dietary cholesterol has only a modest effect on cholesterol circulating in the bloodstream. Your liver produces most of the cholesterol your body uses, and many factors influence that process beyond the foods you eat. Large modern studies have found that moderate egg consumption is generally not associated with a higher risk of cardiovascular disease in healthy adults. But the real reason eggs deserve attention after 60 goes beyond cholesterol. Egg yolks contain high amounts of choline, an essential nutrient involved in many important metabolic functions. Choline helps support cellular processes linked to energy production and fat metabolism. In addition, whole eggs provide one of the highest quality protein sources available. They contain all 9 essential amino acids in forms the body can efficiently use. One amino acid in particular, leucine, is especially important for maintaining muscle tissue. And that's critical because preserving muscle helps preserve metabolic health. The more muscle you maintain as you age, the better your body is able to burn calories throughout the day. Egg yolks also naturally contain vitamin D, a nutrient many older adults don't get enough of. Vitamin D plays important roles in bone strength, immune function, insulin sensitivity, and overall metabolic health. You won't find those benefits in egg whites alone. Research has also shown that eggs can help increase feelings of fullness. Compared to many carbohydrate-based breakfasts, eggs tend to keep people satisfied longer, reducing hunger later in the day. That combination of protein and healthy fats sends powerful satiety signals that help control appetite naturally. For many older adults, enjoying 2 whole eggs at breakfast several times a week can be a simple and practical way to support muscle health, manage hunger, and promote a healthy metabolism. And if you've spent years throwing away the yolk because you believed it was unhealthy, don't be hard on yourself. You were following the information that was available at the time. But science evolves, and sometimes our breakfast choices should evolve with it. Now let's move to the second food, full-fat cheese. Take a piece of aged Parmesan cheese. For years, many people viewed foods like this as dietary disasters. Too much fat, too many calories, and supposedly bad for heart health. What most people never heard was that certain aged cheeses contain unique nutrients and naturally occurring compounds that may support metabolic health, influence gut bacteria, and affect how the body manages fat. The fear of full-fat dairy grew during the low-fat movement of the 1980s, when dietary fat became the primary target of nutrition advice. Manufacturers responded by removing fat from dairy products and replacing it with added sugars, flavor enhancers, and processed ingredients designed to improve taste. The result was often a product that left people less satisfied and more likely to feel hungry again shortly after eating. Full-fat dairy tells a very different story, and one of the most interesting reasons involves a naturally occurring fatty acid known as conjugated linoleic acid, or CLA. CLA is a naturally occurring fatty acid that is found mainly in full-fat dairy products from grass-fed animals. Clinical trials on randomized groups have shown that CLA supplementation at levels similar to what you would get from regular servings of full-fat cheese can help lower body fat percentage, especially around the abdominal area. A meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition reported consistent and statistically meaningful reductions in body fat over a period of about 12 weeks when CLA was included in the diet. What makes CLA interesting is not just its impact on fat levels, but how it works inside the body. It appears to reduce fat accumulation by inhibiting an enzyme in fat cells called lipoprotein lipase. This enzyme is responsible for pulling circulating fat into fat cells and storing it. So when CLA is present, it essentially signals your fat cells to become less efficient at storing fat. But there is another layer to full-fat aged cheese that is even more fascinating, and this is something that has only recently gained attention in nutritional science. Aged cheeses like Parmesan, mature cheddar, Gouda, and Gruyere are among the richest dietary sources of a compound called spermidine. Spermidine is a type of polyamine that activates a process in the body called autophagy. Think of autophagy as your internal recycling system. It helps your cells break down damaged components and regenerate themselves. This process is strongly linked with healthy aging, disease prevention, and even improved fat metabolism. Studies from institutions such as the University of Graz have shown that higher intake of spermidine is associated with lower body weight and a reduction in visceral fat, the harmful fat stored around internal organs. One important detail is that autophagy naturally declines as we get older, so increasing spermidine intake through foods like aged cheese may help support this cellular cleanup process again. There is also another important angle here, gut health. Fermented cheeses contain beneficial bacterial cultures that can influence your gut microbiome. This internal ecosystem plays a powerful role in regulating hormones related to hunger and fat storage, including leptin, which signals fullness, and ghrelin, which triggers hunger. When your gut microbiome is healthier, something especially important after 60, your body tends to regulate appetite more effectively, experience fewer cravings, and manage fat metabolism more efficiently. From a practical standpoint, a reasonable approach is about 1 to 2 ounces of aged cheese, such as Parmesan, Gruyere, or mature cheddar, eaten a few times per week, either as a snack or alongside meals. A particularly effective pairing is combining it with a small handful of walnuts. Walnuts provide ALA omega-3 fatty acids, which appear to work well alongside the CLA found in cheese, creating a supportive environment for fat metabolism. It is also worth checking labels on reduced fat cheese products. In many cases, when fat is removed, it is replaced with sodium, sugars, and additives to improve taste and texture. So the original fat is removed, but something less beneficial often takes its place, which does not necessarily improve health outcomes. Now let's move on to food number 3, dark chocolate with at least 70% cacao. I want to be very clear here. I am a physician, and I am telling you that chocolate can be part of a healthy diet, but only if we are precise about the type. We are talking about dark chocolate that is 70% cacao or higher. Not milk chocolate, not candy bars, not heavily processed chocolate desserts. This distinction is extremely important because the nutritional profile changes completely depending on cacao concentration. Chocolate has long been associated with sugar, cravings, and indulgence, which is why it was often labeled as something to avoid or limit. Most commercial chocolate products are indeed high in sugar and low in meaningful cacao content, which is why they behave more like confectionery than a functional food. However, pure cacao and high-percentage dark chocolate belong to a completely different category biologically. Cacao is extremely rich in flavonols, a class of plant compounds that have been widely studied for their effects on cardiovascular and metabolic health. One of the key actions of these flavonols is stimulating nitric oxide production in the blood vessels. Nitric oxide helps relax and widen blood vessels, improving circulation throughout the body. And circulation matters for fat metabolism because fat burning requires oxygen delivery and efficient transport of nutrients through the bloodstream. A 2012 study in the European Heart Journal found that regular consumption of dark chocolate improved vascular function and blood flow in adults. Another important mechanism involves the gut microbiome. Research from Louisiana State University has shown that cacao polyphenols, which are not fully absorbed in the stomach, travel to the large intestine where they are fermented by beneficial bacteria such as lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. This fermentation process produces short-chain fatty acids, which help reduce inflammation in the gut, improve insulin sensitivity, and influence how the body uses calories, shifting them more toward energy production instead of fat storage. This becomes especially relevant after 60, when metabolic flexibility often declines. One of the major contributors to abdominal fat in older adults is chronically elevated cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. High cortisol levels signal the body to store more fat in the abdominal region, particularly around vital organs. This is an evolutionary survival mechanism, but in modern life, chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated for long periods, which leads to persistent belly fat accumulation. Dark chocolate contains magnesium, and a small serving can provide around 15% of daily magnesium needs. Magnesium plays a well-documented role in regulating cortisol and supporting the HPA axis, which controls stress hormone release. Better magnesium status is associated with improved stress regulation and reduced abdominal fat storage signals. Dark chocolate also contains theobromine, a mild stimulant that can slightly increase metabolic activity without the stronger stress response often seen with high caffeine intake. But again, quality matters. Only chocolate with 70% cacao or more contains enough flavonols and beneficial compounds to produce these effects without excessive sugar interference. A practical serving is about 1 ounce or a few small squares, ideally taken after dinner. This timing can help reduce late-night cravings and support more stable blood sugar levels in the evening. When combined with a light walk after eating, the circulatory benefits from cacao may further support fat oxidation. Now let's move to the 4th food, avocado. Avocado is already widely recognized as a healthy food, but most people still underestimate how powerful it can be when used consistently. The key is not just eating it occasionally, but understanding how often and how much makes a difference. First, there is a common misconception about calories. Yes, avocado is calorie dense, with a whole fruit containing roughly 230 to 320 calories depending on size. Traditional diet thinking assumes that higher calorie foods automatically lead to weight gain. But this ignores how those calories function inside the body. Avocado is primarily made up of oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat also found in olive oil. Oleic acid has been shown to influence gene expression in fat tissue in a way that encourages fat oxidation rather than fat storage. In simple terms, it helps shift fat cells toward burning stored fat for energy instead of accumulating more fat. A study conducted at the University of Illinois, published in the Journal of Nutrition in 2021, followed 163 overweight adults over 12 weeks. One group consumed 1 avocado daily, while the other group did not. The results showed a significant reduction in visceral fat in the avocado group. Not just overall weight loss, but specifically the harmful abdominal fat surrounding internal organs. There were also improvements in gut microbiome diversity, which is increasingly recognized as a key factor in metabolic health. Another remarkable discovery involves a unique compound found only in avocados called avocatin B. Research from the University of Waterloo suggests that avocatin B may improve mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the energy-producing structures in your cells, and they play a central role in how your body burns fat. As we age, especially after 60, mitochondrial efficiency tends to decline. Fat is no longer burned as cleanly for energy and can instead contribute to metabolic dysfunction and inflammation. Avocatin B appears to help support healthier mitochondrial fat oxidation, improving how efficiently fat is used for fuel. What makes this even more interesting is that these effects are cumulative. In the study, benefits increased over time with consistent daily intake across 12 weeks. Occasional avocado consumption does not produce the same measurable impact on visceral fat reduction. The benefit comes from daily exposure, not occasional use. That is one of the most important distinctions people often miss. For adults over 60, avocado offers more than just healthy fats. It's actually a surprisingly nutrient-dense food that supports several systems that tend to weaken with age. For example, potassium levels. Avocados contain more potassium per serving than bananas. That matters because potassium helps regulate fluid balance in the body, which can directly reduce bloating and water retention. Many people in their 60s and beyond are mildly low in potassium, often due to medications like diuretics or simply not eating enough potassium-rich foods. Restoring that balance can lead to noticeable reductions in bloating and abdominal puffiness over time. Then there's fiber. Avocado is rich in soluble fiber, which plays multiple roles at once. It feeds beneficial gut bacteria, slows down the absorption of glucose, and helps you feel full for longer periods. Just half an avocado contains around 5 grams of fiber, which is a meaningful contribution in a typical daily diet. There are also carotenoids like lutein and zeaxanthin. These compounds are especially important for eye health, which becomes a major concern as people age into their 60s and 70s. They help protect the eyes from oxidative stress and support long-term vision health. From a practical perspective, a simple habit works best. Half an avocado every day at lunch. If you currently use mayonnaise on sandwiches or as a dip, consider replacing it entirely with mashed avocado. The taste is still creamy and satisfying, but the nutritional difference is significant. You're upgrading your fat source without adding complexity to your routine. And if you want to maximize the metabolic benefits, one of the strongest combinations you can make is avocado with eggs. Half an avocado paired with 2 whole eggs at breakfast creates a powerful synergy. The oleic acid in avocado and the choline from egg yolks activate different but complementary fat metabolism pathways at the same time. Based on current nutritional research, this combination is one of the most effective, simple, food-based breakfasts for supporting fat metabolism. Yet it costs very little to prepare. Now let's step back and put everything together. We've looked at 4 foods that have long been misunderstood or unfairly avoided in traditional diet culture. Yet current research suggests they may have meaningful benefits for fat metabolism in adults over 60. Whole eggs support metabolism through choline, which activates fat-burning pathways, leucine, which helps preserve muscle, and high-quality protein that reduces hunger and supports satiety. A practical pattern is 2 eggs at breakfast a few times per week. Full-fat aged cheese provides CLA, which influences how fat is stored, spermidine, which supports cellular cleanup processes like autophagy, and fermented compounds that support gut health. Around 1 to 2 ounces a few times weekly is a reasonable range. Dark chocolate with 70% cacao or higher provides flavonols that improve circulation, polyphenols that support gut bacteria involved in metabolism, magnesium that helps regulate stress hormones, and theobromine, which offers a gentle metabolic boost. 1 small serving after dinner is typically enough. Avocado delivers oleic acid, which influences fat-burning gene activity, avocatin B, which supports mitochondrial function, fiber that improves digestion and satiety, and potassium that helps reduce bloating. Half an avocado daily is the practical target, but there are a few important cautions that need to be clear. Not all versions of these foods are equal. Milk chocolate does not offer the same benefits as dark chocolate. In fact, it often works in the opposite direction due to high sugar content. Low-fat cheese is not the same as full-fat cheese. Removing fat often means adding sugar, sodium, or additives to compensate. Egg whites alone do not provide the same metabolic benefits as whole eggs because many of the key nutrients are found in the yolk. These differences are not small details. They completely change the effect of the food. It's also important not to misunderstand the message here. These foods are not a replacement for an otherwise poor diet. They are not a loophole that cancels out processed food, excess sugar, or highly refined carbohydrates. They work best as part of a consistent, whole food-based eating pattern that supports your metabolism rather than constantly stressing it. And timing matters. Most of the studies showing benefits from these foods looked at consistent use over weeks, not days. Typically, meaningful changes were observed over 8 to 12 weeks. That means patience is part of the process. Your metabolism after 60 doesn't respond instantly. It responds steadily over time when given the right signals consistently. If you stay consistent for 3 months, the changes are often noticeable not just in how you look, but in how you feel. Energy, appetite control, and overall metabolic stability. Now, there's one more thing I want to address directly. Some of you may bring this information to your doctor, and you may encounter skepticism, sometimes even outright dismissal. I want you to understand something important. Medical nutrition guidelines often take many years to fully reflect the latest research. There is usually a long delay between emerging studies and official recommendations. That means some advice still being widely shared today may be based on older evidence that has since been updated or refined. This is not a flaw in your doctor. It's a structural reality of how medical systems and guidelines evolve. What matters is asking better questions. Instead of accepting or rejecting information blindly, it's reasonable to ask where the recommendation comes from and how recent the supporting evidence is. Being an informed patient is not about challenging authority for the sake of it. It's about participating in your own health decisions with clarity and understanding. You've likely spent years following rules that were designed for a different stage of life, and sometimes based on incomplete science. Over time, many of those rules have been revised, but not all of them have reached everyday practice yet. So today is really about perspective as much as it is about food. It's about recognizing that your body has changed and your nutrition strategy should change with it. It's about understanding that food is not just calories and restrictions. It's information your body responds to at a biological level. And most importantly, it's about moving away from fear-based eating. The foods we discussed, eggs, aged cheese, dark chocolate, and avocado, are not cheats or guilty pleasures. They are nutrient-rich foods that can play a supportive role in a healthy metabolic system when used correctly and consistently. Science continues to evolve, and as it does, so should our understanding of food. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 4 foods surprised you the most? Was it eggs, cheese, chocolate, or avocado? Share your thoughts because your experiences help shape what comes next. If you found this helpful, make sure you stay connected for more insights on nutrition and aging. And before you go, remember this. Small, consistent changes often matter more than extreme ones. You don't need perfection. You need direction. Take care of yourself, stay consistent, and I'll see you next time.